everyone. Welcome back to She Bars Podcast. I am your host, Brook Nichelle, and today's guest is Shanel. Hi, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Hi, I'm super excited about this.
So, before we start, I wanted you to share your story with my listeners, your background and your
Yeah,
story of, yeah.
absolutely. I would love to. My name is Shanel Bodero. I was born in California and I now live here in Utah. I grew up in Texas though. So I was born in California, grew up in Texas most of my life. And then I've been here in Utah for the last like 15 years. I got married, started a family. I have 3 kids. And yeah, now I'm divorced, doing the single mom life, all of that. But kind of like backtracking to, childhood and growing up, um, I was basically an only child until I was 15. And yeah, I had kind of an interesting growing up. I had an interesting dynamic within my family. My mother has MPD, which that's what it was formerly known as, was multiple personality disorder. Um, they've now renamed it to DID, which is dissociative identity disorder. But yeah, I kind of grew up with that. And it was interesting. It got harder the older I got. And she actually didn't even get officially diagnosed until about 7 years ago. Um, and yeah, it's that's like a whole nother podcast on like why mental health is so hard to get diagnosed right now.
It is.
But yeah, it's it's so hard. But yeah, she got officially diagnosed 7 years ago. And it's funny, but my mother and I actually had a really close relationship all the way up until I was about, like 20, 21. Um, and I didn't realize at the time, but it was just so toxic. It was just so toxic. And I actually have removed her and my dad from my life about 7 years ago. Um, and I cut contact 100% pretty much. And it was super hard, but by far the best thing for me, my kids, like how I can be a mother, just me as a person, like as a woman, as a
Yes.
daughter, all of that. So it was kind of a wild ride.
Yeah, because DID, I know a lot about that because being in the
Do you?
hospital myself, yeah, with bipolar, I've had people with DID around me, so we was in the same room together and everything. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a oh your cat,
My
it's
cat
a
ran through.
it is really hard to deal with the different personalities and stuff, and I don't think there's a cure for it, is it? Like, I don't think so.
I mean, there's not a cure, but you can now my mother actually did this. I found her a therapist 7 years ago when she got diagnosed, but I don't know if there's a new name for it, but it was called like fusion therapy, where
Mhm.
basically you go through very intense therapy like multiple times a week, continually for years, where they basically kind of meld all of your personalities back into one.
Mhm.
So is it a cure? No, but does it kind of change, the outcome? Yes. Because it's man-made. This disorder is man-made. You're not born with it. So it's kind of I think you can manage it and you can become, I don't want to say better. You manage it. There's ways to manage it through therapy and things like that.
That's true. So was your life kind of like the United States of Terror? I think that's what it's called, the States of Terror. You know that show that I'm talking about?
I've only seen a couple episodes of it. It's interesting because as a kid, I if my mother hadn't have been so vocal about it and kind of had no filter, I don't think I would have known that she had this disorder until I was an adult. Um, because when you're a kid and you kind of watch that, you don't really know that there's alters. You just think it's your mom, with different mood swings, right? And so I have a few memories. Some are good, and then some are not so good, where I vividly remember in my mind thinking, that's not my mom. Like, that's weird. That's not how she normally would react. And that, like I said, that could be negative or it could be positive. But it still creates this like inconsistency where as a child you kind of walk around on eggshells all the time because you've seen the switch, but you don't really understand it. And you're like, well, I don't want to make her do that. I don't
Yeah.
want to make the mood swings happen, or I don't want to experience that. So you kind of just become this very like mellow, not moody child, which all children are moody. um, and yeah, I just kind of trained myself to be at like a 5 all the time.
So,
So yeah, I don't,
so
it was just chaos.
oh wow. So with you understanding what the idea is and what your mom had, why did you cut why did you choose to cut all contact off with them? Like
Yeah, that's such a good, like, loaded question. It's one of the reasons why I actually have been wanting to be guests on podcasts because
mhm,
I feel like there's this taboo and this stigma towards mental health, but then there's
mhm,
also this stigma on cutting contact with toxicity.
yeah.
And even though I knew about her disorder, it doesn't necessarily change the way she treats people. And so it was one of those things where I had to finally just look myself in the mirror and say, do I love my mother? Yes. Is it terrible that she has this disorder? Yes. Is it fair for me to always take on the toxicity and then it just be, oh, well, she's sick? So you just have to put up with it all the time. And I finally had to just realize that no, it wasn't okay. Um, does her behavior, is it explained by her disorder? Yes. Does it excuse it? No. I had to kind of realize the difference. And my father, I cut contact with him because, bless his heart, he needs probably more therapy than anybody. Um, he is just so trauma bonded to her that she is number one all the time, doesn't matter. And that's been my whole life with him, where it did not matter if, she did this or that, or it was always, oh, well, your mom's sick. You just have to let it go.
Mhm.
And so
Like
I never
that's the
had any
excuse.
support. Yeah, I never had any support from him on that end. And so it got to a point where he would just enable all of her bad behavior and it didn't matter what happened to me. And so yeah, I had to just kind of put them together and put them to the side and just say I have to do this on my own because I can't keep taking in all of this toxicity.
Yeah, I agree. I understand and agree because dealing with someone with mental illness, it can be
Mhm.
a struggle. It can, and I see it from my
It
mom
really
all the time.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So I wanted to get into your other story. So I
Yeah.
know there's some things you can't tell us and some things you can. So
Yes.
you can tell us stuff that you can.
Absolutely.
Oh, you can go
So
ahead.
my yeah, no, you're good. So I'll kind of lead into it with this quote. So my ex-husband, he he had a girlfriend and she and I kind of got into contact and we were talking and she she looked at me and she said, we have kind of similar, not similar stories, but similar, we both have trauma. We both have kind of that toxicity. We were raised in kind of not the best way. And she said that she had been in, very manipulative, very toxic relationships. And she said that her therapist one day told her, when you are raised on hot coals and you're constantly stepping on hot coals, and then you find a pile of shit, it feels cooler. It feels cooler, but it's still shit. It's just
Right.
different. And she told me that, and my mind was blown because I basically moved from toxicity with my mother into toxicity with my ex-husband. But in my mind at the time, thinking I learned my lesson and I was in such a good relationship and it was so healthy, when really it was just shit, just different than hot coals. And I think that a lot of women experience that. I think a lot of women go into these relationships leaving something toxic and thinking, oh, like this is so much better. And then you find out that it's not.
At all. At
No,
all.
yes. Ugh, it took a long time. I tried really hard. But my ex-husband is such a good liar, really manipulative. And I didn't know this until later, but a 100% like chronic, obsessed, just cheater sex addict. And I didn't know it until after I had divorced him, where I found out that he was having long-term physical affairs, multiple at once, like
What?
all of these things throughout the entire 10 years of our marriage. And I'm glad I found it all out after I divorced him, to be honest,
Mhm.
because I was able to look at it completely differently. And I was able to look at it as these women were also victims in a way, because he's such a good liar. He's so manipulative that he kind of targeted these different women. And I was able to be in a place where I wasn't mad at them. I wasn't, angry at them. I was able to talk to them and have a normal conversation and get the information that I needed. But I wasn't in the heat of, oh my gosh, my husband did this. It was, oh yeah, my ex-husband did this. Like,
Yeah,
what a
like I
dickhole.
knew
You know what I
it.
mean?
Right. It's what I expected.
Yeah, right? Ugh, terrible.
It seemed like he went after women that had a past, like a trauma past.
He really did. He also used his power, his like
Mhm.
power of being a Marine, his power of his employment. Like he was the boss of many women. He was able to use that against them and and it just use that as a key factor of, yeah, I really like you, but I'm also this like head honcho and let's do this. Or he would just lie about his situation. There was some women that had no idea I even existed. There was some women that did, but he would lie about the entire situation and be like, yeah, we're really not together anymore. Like, we're already on our way to divorce when I was pregnant with his child. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, so I found all this out after the fact, and I was just like, wow, okay, like things kind of start making more sense and things lined up once I started to, really get all the information. Um, but yeah, I honestly don't know how he had the energy for it, but he kind of
Mm.
went, he just had this whole second life, and I was just a target in it, and ended up having 3 children with him and married for almost 10 years.
Oh my
It's
god.
insane. I
No.
know.
No.
Yeah.
I'm surprised this story didn't make like national news because I want to see what he looks like. Like, I'm just like,
Well,
wow.
it's funny because I actually got the idea to start digging because things just didn't make sense to me. Like, I would think about our marriage and I'd be like, that was so good. So why did it end up so bad? Or all of these kind of like holes that were in my mind about our marriage. Um, and so I actually watched the documentary Betrayal. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen it, but
yeah.
I actually watched that and I was like, hmm. And I started digging and I found all this out literally within like 3 weeks. I just started digging and all of these women started coming forward and just talking about, oh yeah, I had this relationship with him and yeah, this would happen. And, he would do this and this at work and all of these things. And my mind was just blown. but it also kind of solidified and helped me realize that it wasn't me.
Mhm.
He had all the issues. It wasn't me, which was actually really relieving to feel. Yes, I was getting all of this like crazy information that no ex-wife or wife wants to know about. But on the other hand, I was so relieved that I was like, it wasn't me. It was him the whole time. Like, I tried so hard in our marriage and he didn't. And now I'm getting all of that information and it makes me feel so much better.
Man, let me ask you a question. This
Yeah.
Your whole story reminds me of a Lifetime movie,
Ah,
but but I watch a lot of Lifetime and I watch a lot of crime shows. And one lady, her ex husband's family warned her about him. Did you meet his family and did they warn you about him?
no,
Like,
they didn't really know. They
oh,
I'm really close with them. I'm still very close with his family. I talk to them on a weekly basis. Um, so no, they didn't know either. They had no idea that it was this bad. And so yeah, I mean, and when I joined the family, I was like 21 years old. So I was just young. He had just gotten out of another marriage, and they honestly were just like so excited that like he met this really nice girl that like came into their family. And yeah, I'm super close with them still though. I love them.
oh wow, how did they feel about the whole situation? Like, did they apologize? Well, I mean, them apologizing is it's not their fault, but oh my god.
Yeah, no, me and his sisters, we talk a lot and we just sometimes will be like mind blown that like sometimes we'll chat and be like, how did he do that? I can't believe he did that. Like he had so much going for him and he threw it all away. And we'll joke around about it and then we'll talk really serious about it. But yeah, they kind of are in the same boat I am where they're just kind of like, what? Like how could he do all of that? But I'm just glad I
Oh,
have them for support and that we can talk about it.
man. So I'm kind of curious. Like, I really want to look up this whole case. So, so you said in Utah. No, you can't talk about it. But oh my god,
Yes.
I'm curious. I'm so curious.
You
Like, it's killing me right now.
honestly, if you want to, after everything's done, we can do a whole nother one of these. And I will
Yeah.
come on again and I can talk all about it.
Oh man. So, is your how does your family feel about it? Like, well, I know you're not close with your mom and dad,
Mm-mm.
but the people that you are close to in your family,
Yeah.
how did they take it? And your kids, like, how did your kids take
So,
it?
yeah. So I'm really close with one of my aunts, and she had a hard time with it too because she was so close with him. She loved him. So it was really hard for us. We had a few months where we just kind of cried off and on. We talked about it. It was really hard because he was so good at hiding this like second life that he lived. Um, so that was really hard and she did a lot for him. So she kind of felt betrayed too at the same time. And then I have a couple other like distant family members that know I'm divorced and all of that. And they're very supportive. They're just like, you know what, you need to do what you need to do and whatever makes you happy. But when it comes to just like my actual parents, I mean I'm assuming they know that I'm divorced, but I've actually never told them. I haven't said anything to them. Um but I'm sure they know through the grapevine, through other family members. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I haven't mentioned anything. I'm sure my mother is thrilled because she didn't like him at all. They really butted heads. But the funny part is because they were very similar. They're very,
Oh
very
wow.
similar personalities. So I think that's why. But yeah, she and him kind of went back and forth a lot over the last 10 years.
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually people that are alike butt heads a lot.
Right? Yeah, they definitely did. They had their moments for sure.
Oh man. So has he tried to contact his kids like at all? Like,
No, not anymore. It's been about 4.5 months. My kids we've finally gotten back into like a groove where, you know, it's just me. I'm just single momming it up. And my 9-year-old is in therapy, which has been really, really good for him. It's been really awesome. Yeah, and my other two they're just strolling along. They're going to school, they're making friends. We've been getting a lot of get-togethers with cousins and aunts and just really kind of holding on to the family that we do have. And for the circumstances, they're doing really, really good.
That's good. I was going to ask you if
Yeah.
they were old enough to understand the situation that's going on.
No, they're not. So they're 9, 6, and 4.
Oh, nope.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, they're too little. So even like with my divorce, we just had to explain it to them of like, yep, mommy and daddy it's not working anymore. And sometimes it's just better if mom and dad aren't together. And so one of those type of conversations where it's like super vague, but how else are you supposed to explain it to a 6-year-old?
Yeah. Gotta wait until they're older.
Yep, wait until they're older for sure.
So how are you doing now? Like, how's your life now? You said it's really good now with your kids and stuff.
Yeah, like it definitely took a minute. It was just funny because like my divorce happened a little over a year ago and I adjusted to that. And then, you know, everything else happened where I became 100% mom. And so then I had to adjust to that. And I would say it's been pretty recent. I do have a boyfriend and bless his heart, I don't even know why he stays. I joke with him all the time because he's been in our lives for now, I guess, a little over 5 months, and he just rolled with it. Like, and I'm like, "I have every red flag, I feel like, in the book, and you can run." And he's like, "No, like, it's fine." Like, he's like, "If this is what he would tell me, which is so sweet. He'd be like, "If this is you at your worst, I can't wait to see you at your best." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh." So,
That is.
things are definitely isn't that so sweet? Things are definitely we're now in like a good groove again. Like we have a schedule. I take them to school. My job is amazing. I love my job. My relationship, things are kind of getting more serious there. My kids are now getting really used to him. They really like him coming over, like him being part of, our daily lives. And then just
fun things. And I would say that most of the time they are just genuinely happy now. And we really have good days. We have a lot more good days than we do bad days.
Yeah, that's true. Because I see your posts and stuff. I'm like, oh, she's happy. And the way you handled the situation is very, very, very mature as a mother. Like most mothers, some mothers that I met, I'm like,
yeah,
all right.
No, I'm a huge believer in, I will always be honest with my children, but I will never kind of like tarnish their belief or what they think of someone until they're old enough to understand both sides. That's kind of my whole idea. I grew up in a religion that kind of really didn't believe in that. And it was very much like it's this way or the highway. You don't really get to think for yourself. You have to choose this and this and this. And I really hated how that kind of affected me as an adult of like, oh, I can't really think for myself. And so I take it very seriously that I will always be honest with them, but I will also take into consideration their age and who they are and kind of allow them to get to that point or that belief about their family or their dad or me on their own. And that's kind of what I want for them.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast today and telling me your story.
I have enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to put you backstage and then do my closing, but I want to talk to you after this, so don't get off.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.